Imagine you are standing in a bustling market in the heart of Delhi and you have a budget of exactly 1000 rupees. You see a mountain of things you want: fresh spices, a colorful scarf, a new book, a decorative lamp, and a tray of sweets. If you try to buy everything at once, you will run out of money before you get the things you truly need. This is the exact dilemma teams face in every office. We have 500 great ideas, but we only have time and budget to build 50. Prioritization is the conscious act of deciding what to do first, what to do later, and what to drop entirely. The formal definition is the process of ranking tasks based on value, risk, or urgency. In simple terms, it is the art of saying no to the good ideas so that you have the resources to say yes to the great ones. You have probably been in that meeting where everyone argues that their task is the most important one, and because you can't agree, you just try to do everything at once, which usually results in high stress and poor quality. Real discipline in Agile comes from knowing how to sort the signal from the noise. So, now that we've mastered the realization that we cannot do everything and need a strategy to decide, you might be wondering how we categorize tasks when we are in a hurry. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the famous MoSCoW method. Let's go back to our market example. You need your weekly groceries to survive. You really want that scarf for an upcoming party. You could use a new book for your commute. And it would be nice to have that lamp if there is money left over. This is exactly how we use the MoSCoW method. M stands for must have. If you don't have it, the product simply won't work. S stands for should have. It is important but not critical for today. C stands for could have. It would be great if we had extra time. And W stands for won't have, not this time. The formal definition is a technique used to reach consensus on the importance of requirements by categorizing them into these four buckets. In simple words, it's just a way to organize your to-do list so you don't waste time on the nice to haves while your core product is still broken. I have seen teams fail because they spent 3 weeks building a could have feature, like a fancy dark mode color scheme, while the must have payment portal was still failing. If you don't use a structure like this, your team will always prioritize the loudest person in the room rather than the most valuable task. So, now that we've mastered the art of bucket sorting our work, you might be wondering how we handle situations where speed and financial value are the biggest factors. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the weighted shortest job first, or WSJF method. Sometimes the MoSCoW method isn't enough because we need to compare apples to oranges. Imagine you are running a delivery business in a city like Bengaluru. You have two orders. One is a small letter that is very urgent and brings in a tiny profit, and the other is a massive package that takes all day but brings in a huge profit. Which do you pick? This is where WSJF, or weighted shortest job first, comes in. It is defined as a prioritization model used to rank jobs based on the economic benefit divided by the time it takes to complete. Simply put, it is the biggest bang for your buck. We take the value of the job and divide it by how long it takes to do. If a job is super valuable and can be finished in an hour, you do it immediately. If it is high value but takes 3 months, it might get pushed back. You have probably seen projects that drag on for ages because they were too big and didn't provide enough daily value. WSJF forces you to look at the math rather than the emotions. It helps you find those small, quick wins that have a massive impact on your bottom line. So, now that we've mastered the math of value and speed, you might be wondering how we decide what to do when there are risks that could stop us from delivering anything at all. Well, that brings us right into our next step, the role of risk-adjusted prioritization. Let's imagine our delivery business again. You have a very high profit delivery, but the motorcycle you need to use has a broken engine. If you try to do that delivery, you'll end up stranded on the side of the road and you'll lose the package. This is a risk. Sometimes the highest value work is also the highest risk. Risk-adjusted prioritization is the practice of ranking tasks not just by how much they earn, but by how much they protect the project from disaster. In simple words, it means you don't build the beautiful features if the foundation is about to crack. You have probably seen teams at the office that are so focused on launching new features that they completely ignore the technical debt or security holes in their system. Eventually, the whole system crashes. An agile leader looks at a list and asks, what will hurt us the most if we don't fix it right now? Sometimes the most valuable work is actually the work that removes a giant risk from your path, because once that risk is gone, you can move 10 times faster. So now that we have mastered the balance between profit and safety, you might be wondering how we manage the conflicting priorities of different people. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the power of collaborative prioritization. Think about a family planning a dinner. The kids want pizza, the parents want a healthy salad, and the grandparents want something traditional. If you pick just one, two people are unhappy. Collaborative prioritization is the technique of using the team and the stakeholders together to rank the backlog, often using tools like dot voting or negotiation. In simple terms, it is getting everyone in a room to agree. You've probably seen the office conflict where the marketing team thinks the website needs better colors and the engineering team thinks it needs a faster server. They both have valid points. If you act as the Scrum Master and just pick one, you lose their support. But if you gather them, lay out the facts, and let them see the constraints, they often come to a compromise themselves. Collaborative prioritization creates buy-in. When people feel their opinion was heard and they understand why a decision was made, they work much harder to make that decision a success. It turns a fight into a partnership. So, now that we've mastered the social side of decision making, you might be wondering how we keep the system working once we are deep into the daily grind. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is maintaining the living, breathing backlog. Finally, let's revisit our market trip in Delhi. You might start out wanting a lamp, but halfway through, you realize you don't have enough room in your luggage. You have to be able to change your plan on the fly. A backlog is not a stone tablet. It is a living document that must be groomed and updated. The formal definition is the process of backlog refinement, which is the act of adding detail, estimates, and order to items in the product backlog. In simple words, it means you must constantly review your priorities. Just because something was a must-have last month doesn't mean it is still the most valuable thing today. A smart team checks its priorities at the start of every single iteration. They look at what they learned, what changed in the market, and what the customer actually said. If you treat your backlog as a rigid, unchangeable list, you will miss out on the best opportunities. By constantly refining and reprioritizing, you ensure that every day your team is working on the absolute best thing they could be doing. We have moved from the basic MoSCoW method through the math of WSJF into risk management, team collaboration, and constant refinement. You now have the full toolkit to ensure your team never wastes a single hour on work that doesn't truly matter.